Today we're going to be talking about Società Sportiva Calcio Napoli. As their name suggests, they're from the city of Naples in the south of Italy. Their color of blue they take from the coastal region, being close to the waters, and it also gives them their nickname, the Azzurri. I find Napoli to be a consistent and very reliable club in many different ways, and to touch on just a few, you can see that Kappa, their kit provider, as well as their different sponsors, have been the same for a very long time. On top of that, their badge is very iconic and has stayed the same relatively for a long time. And on top of that, in recent seasons, they're almost always in Europe consistently. And finally, they have a lot of key players that have been with the club for a very long stretch. Although that is changing this offseason with the squad in a little bit of an upheaval with a lot of outgoings of key long-term players. To see who comes in new will tell a lot about how this club goes forward. So here are your three key things about Napoli, most of which touch on the social divide between northern and southern Italy. First, Napoli were a relatively unsuccessful club in their early years and are a prime example of how one key player coming to the club can change their fortunes forever. For Napoli, that man was the Argentinian great Diego Maradona, who they signed from Barcelona in 1984. And he was like a spark that lit the fire, with the club all of a sudden winning almost everything, taking titles in Serie A in 1987 and 1990, with 1987 also winning a Coppa Italia to do a double in the country, and sandwiching between the both of those years, taking the UEFA Cup in 1989. Maradona's Argentina knocked Italy out of the World Cup in the semi-final that year, and many Southern Italians and Napoli fans will tell you they feel that the enforced drug test that he failed afterwards was retribution by Northern Italians for his role in that semi-final exit. Sadly, this pretty much ended his career at Napoli as well. Second key point is they had two fallow decades following the exit of Maradona, although in this last decade they have taken 3 Coppa Italia titles, are consistently challenging for the Scudetto every single season as well, although they have yet to take their 3rd Serie A title. And finally, their rivalries with Juventus and AS Roma exemplify Napoli's role as a bastion of Southern Italian and particularly Neapolitan culture in the country, with matches consistently each season being a focal point for the social rift between the North and the South. To talk about a couple names you might know that have come through Napoli, let's start with Edinson Cavani, the Uruguayan striker, who is still looking for a club this summer. Marek Hamšík, who has landed at Trabzonspor in recent seasons, Slovakian, and also probably the most iconic haircut every single season in football. And finally, their native son, Lorenzo Insigne, the name on the back of this kit here, who has recently just left the club to sign for Toronto FC in the MLS. Insigne leaving the club, as well as Kalidou Koulibaly, one of their best defenders and the best in Serie A in recent seasons, moving to Chelsea in the last week, really does signify the end of the era for Napoli. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with the rest of this transfer window in order to start off this new chapter on the right page. It's going to be key for Napoli to build around their core of young players, especially focusing on Victor Osimhen, their Nigerian striker, who is a very good goal scorer, as well as a talented winger in Mexican international Chucky Lozano. So this has been your rundown on Napoli, the second club we've covered from the current 7 Sisters of Italian football.